Hello all, welcome to the new Simply Put series by Kalam Academy. This is Priyanka Mahapatra, faculty at Kalam. So today we'll be having a discussion on the newspaper dated 5th of December 2023. So the articles which are displayed in the text and the context section of the Hindu newspaper are: first is the need to transform agri-food systems. This is an article which is already discussed in the new Simply Put series of 2nd December 2023. That you can check it out and the link will be provided in the description box. Again, some articles were important that have appeared in the explain section of the Indian Express newspaper, that is about the fossil fuel question, and second is about the cyclone Michuang, which will make the landfall today in the coast of Andhra Pradesh. So let's get started. So these are the three important articles from today's newspapers which are displayed on your screen. So the first article is about the COP28 climate meeting, which has recently been conducted in Dubai, and where the fossil fuel question has erupted again. So you all know that oil, gas and coal and their derivatives, they account for at least 80% of the greenhouse gas emissions. So you can gauge how important it is to look into this fossil fuel factor in order to mitigate the effect of climate change. So fossil fuels, they have been always the elephant in the room which nobody has ever chosen to see, because it is one of the most important source of energy. Many major developing and developed countries, they are either the major producers or major consumers of fossil fuels. Without it, no development can be foreseen. It's like living in the caves without the use of fossil fuels. With phase out of the fossil fuels, it's difficult to see the future. That is why COPs conveniently over the years, they haven't acknowledged the role of fossil fuels. Instead, they have always talked of temperature targets, emission reductions, and various other things, and not the actual source of the problem, actual reason for the problem. Thus, no wonder none of the climate targets have ever been achieved so far, because nobody is talking about the root cause of the problem, that is the fossil fuels, which account for 80% of the total emissions today. Everybody is only conveniently talking about the peripheral measures, that is improving energy efficiencies through energy efficient buildings, energy efficient appliances, about the geoengineering, about the carbon capture and storage, but none are talking about phasing out completely of the fossil fuels. On the other hand, by not talking about it, the global production of fossil fuels is continuously rising. And to add on, the renewable energy, which is the talk of the town nowadays, it is not developing at a faster enough pace to replace the fossil fuel capacity. So because of these reasons, none of the climate targets have been achieved so far. We are just aiming to cut emissions without even touching the source of the emissions. And to add on to the problem, we have seen double-faced Western countries. In COP26 in Glasgow, what they did, that they directly imposed the phase out of coal, only coal. Out of all the fossil fuels, they targeted coal, and they imposed on India-like developing countries for the complete phase out, which is quite impossible in case of India for its developmental needs. Because it needs to depend on coal for a decade and a half to become developed in order to raise its citizens to a living standard as good as the developed countries. So it outrightly rejected the phase out of coal in COP26 in Glasgow. Again, European Union also showed its double-faced nature by declaring natural gas as green in some specific uses, due to the energy crisis happened because of Russia-Ukraine war. So see the double-sidedness of Western countries. They are only imposing on others and they are not making any efforts to actually reduce the consumption of the fossil fuels. So India's response has been quite practical. It has rejected outrightly many of the demands of the developed countries which they are actually not following. It has fought hard to get the word phase out changed to phase down. We should be starting from phasing down the fossil fuels. And India has argued against singling out of coal, only targeting coal, and rather we should be phasing down all the fossil fuels, including the oil and the natural gas. India argued this at COP27 in 2022 in Egypt. For India, complete shutdown of the coal-fired power plants is impossible because they rely on coal for the power production. Similarly, India has rejected the emissions cut in the agricultural sector, which is around 15% of the India's annual emissions, because the cropping patterns will change if we focus on the emissions cut in the agricultural sector. Instead of rice and wheat, which are responsible for maximum emissions, for example, sugarcane for that matter, we would be bringing up the millets, pulses. So the cropping patterns will change. That will impact on the food security of the people as well. So thus, fossil fuels phase out is a very sensitive issue for most of the powerful players like US, EU, China, India, Australia, Saudi Arabia, UAE, because they are either the major producers or major consumers of the fossil fuels. So here in COP28 that happened this year, the final decision might indeed have a mention of the need to phase down the fossil fuels. That itself is a very radical decision because it has remained unmentioned over 30-40 years now. And hence, we'll be seeing intense negotiations in the coming times for the schedules, for the specifics, like in what timeline it needs to be phased out, the quantifiable targets in phasing down the fossil fuels, etc. Right? So this was all about this topic's discussion. You can add these notes to your current notes on climate change talks. What are the challenges? What is the India's stand? What is the India's response and rejections? What are the red lines? On which topics India is on the same page with the developed countries and which are not? On which topics it is outrightly rejecting? So these things you must be knowing for the interview perspective as well as from your mains answer writing perspective. So let's now come to the second article of the day, that is Cyclone Michuang, which is heading to the Andhra coast and it is about to make landfall today. And it is said to be an unusual storm. Why? Because the storms during this time, they do not behave as Cyclone Michuang is behaving this time. Thanks to the global warming, the extreme climate events which we are witnessing very frequently nowadays. So what are tropical cyclones then? They are violent storms that originate over oceans in the tropical areas and they move over to the coastal areas for making the landfall, bringing about large-scale destruction like violent winds, very heavy rainfall, and storm surge. This is the cyclone you can see. So India's tropical storms, they are about 5 in a year. Climatologically, about 5 cyclones develop in the North Indian Ocean basin every year. Average of 4 cyclones over the Bay of Bengal and 1 over Arabian Sea. And the 1 over Arabian Sea is of high intensity. So North Indian Ocean basin is more prone to the cyclonic development during the period of April and December, and more notably is in the month of May and November, that might reach to higher intensities than other storms which originate. So here you should be knowing the conditions for the development of cyclones, that is cyclogenesis. So these are the important pointers you must be knowing from your prelims perspective and mains perspective. So what are the conditions for the development and the strengthening of cyclones? First is that we need to have a large sea surface with ocean heat there, with a temperature higher than 27 degrees Celsius, prevailing at depths between 50 meters and 100 meters. There should be a presence of Coriolis force, which will help to create the cyclonic vortex. Again, a weak low pressure area has to be there, which will allow the winds to gush to the center of the low pressure area with a high speed. There should be small variations in the vertical wind speed. So these are the conditions you need to remember for the generation, for the development and strengthening of the cyclones. So you must be reading in detail in your GS papers. So keep note of these developments, so that any question comes with relation to any cyclone, then you can easily answer. So this is all about today's discussion. Thank you so much.